The door was off the craft, or hatch, whatever you want to call it. Right alongside of it was an American flag adhered to it, a little sticker, not
really
a cloth flag. Now, all that did was cement it in my mind, thinking, well, this is, obviously this is it. I slid my hand along the side of the craft, which the guard didn't appreciate, and I was told, again, keep my hands at my side.
What did it feel like?
Walk forward. I say it felt like metal, and the reason I say that is because it was cool to the touch.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes.
It could
it have
metal
been an advanced ceramic or something? Absolutely. But to me, it felt and it appeared like metal. We continued in, and this is where I first met the person that I'd be working with, Barry Castillo or Castile, however you pronounce that. And this is when I first saw the initial components of the craft that had been taken out.
So they had begun to gut this thing then?
Not this particular one. There was more than one there.
How many?
There were actually 9 craft, not all like this, but from what they told me, from what I saw, there were 9 craft, and don't ask me where they came from or how we got them or anything. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. But the craft were in different, really different states. Some were completely dismantled. Some looked as if they would be operational, that they hadn't been touched at all. But apparently, from what I understand, all the crafts had the exact same reactor and propulsion system in them.
Did any of the craft look as though they had been in a collision or crash?
No. The only one that had damage to it looked intentional. It was a craft that had it's kind of hard to describe, but the area around the craft, the lip, if you will, was very broad and flat and thin, and it looked as if it had been stood up and a projectile fired through it. The hole from the distance that I saw, it looked around 4 inches, but it could have been at any size. It looked as if the metal was bent outward, and now that could have been dropped from the sky. Someone could have fired a projectile through it. Who knows? Again,
well,
this is
that alone is very interesting. In other words, we're not dealing with Superman's cape here. Holes could be blown through it.
Right. Of course, on the other hand, it's an extremely unscientific test. You take something as prized as that, you don't stand it up and fire a cannon at the thing or a howitzer. You certainly, take a small quantity off and, do your analysis of that piece. But for whatever reason, that was the only one that looked like it sustained any damage. Some of the other craft were dismantled to some point, but certainly not wrecked. The only craft that I was permitted to work on, to touch, to have anything to do with, was the craft that I termed the sport model. That's the one that you have a model of there.
Well, as you turn around, as you walk in on all of this, though, Bob,
No, I did not see this all at one time. I saw this one craft. Now, the hangar doors are all next to each other, and only at one time, way down the road, were all the bay doors open at one time, and I got a glance to see in what was the other hangar doors. But for the most part, at this point, all I knew was that there was this one craft, and now in my mind, I am convinced that this is just a U.S. manufactured, extremely secret,
craft.
Fighter reconnaissance craft, who knows what. But
and the little American flag did that for you?
Oh, without question, that was it. It's a done deal. So
what do you say? You look at it and say, turn around to your companion, we'll call him, and say, wow, or my God, or where did these come from?
No, nothing. I just had a smile on my face, if I remember, walked into the back door, and then, the introductions began. The only other person I really interfaced with was Rene. I don't remember his last name, and I actually can't remember what in the world Rene did. But for the most part, Barry and I worked closely together. Now, this is also the first time that my supervisor left me alone with Barry, and this is where the learning process essentially began. And this is where my view of everything changed.
Did they tell you at that point what your specific job was? In other words, there it is, and it's sort of like, okay, what am I supposed to do?
Well, that's what this, that's where we begin now. This is exactly what this meeting with Barry entails, is the description of precisely what I'm supposed to be working on, what my function in life is now at this place. And this is where I find out that we are essentially, well, number one, that the briefings I was reading are correct.
In other words, they are extraterrestrial.
Right. These craft are not extraterrestrial. The scope, the aim of our project is now to back engineer these craft, or this one particular craft, with the intention of duplicating it, or duplicating the subsystems within it using earthly materials. So that was the project. Now, this hit me quite hard at that time, and needless to say, now, this night I didn't get any sleep. It was fairly exciting before that, but and certainly Barry just telling me this wasn't enough. This is when we also had some demonstrations on what we had found out, or what information had been gleaned so far from the technology that we've seen. It was all very fantastic, and it was absolutely mind-boggling.
Well, I know you don't follow all this, but I have to ask, have you seen Independence Day?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. At least you've done that. You remember when they brought everybody into Area 51 and they opened the big door and you want to see?
Well, they invited me to the premiere of that.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. In fact, they made me stand up for some reason.
They made you?
Yeah, and they introduced me.
I see.
But in fact, someone called. I don't remember the people involved there, but when they were talking about the movie, the making of the movie, so on and so forth, the lab technician there, I don't remember his name in the movie, but who wore the white lab coat, they called the Bob Lazar guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Dean Devlin was the writer.
I don't remember the other people that were there, but I thought that was pretty funny. But as they said, they had taken... for the movie, they had taken much of the UFO lore stories and everything that had been circulating around for years and, threw together the script in a short time and, produced it. So that wasn't, it looked nothing like that, by the way, but, the idea was the same.
Same idea. All right, well, we're at an interesting juncture here, and the real fun is about to begin. Were you told that you were going to be working on one specific area of back engineering, or were you going
Only.
Only?
Yeah,
really, only?
Power and propulsion system and everything else was essentially off limits.
Meaning you couldn't even touch it?
No, I couldn't touch it. However, I did get to go on the craft one time, and this was for the express purpose of only seeing the placement of the reactor and how the gravity amplifiers worked, how the emitters moved freely underneath on the primary level, and just how all the subcomponents, fit together.
All right, that's a good place to hold it. We're at the top of the hour. Take a good few moments to relax, and we'll be right back.